Hi, I'm Alex. I'm going to be playing the role of Chris, the brand manager.
And I'm Chad, and I'm playing the role of Lee, the product manager.
So Lee, thank you for meeting today to discuss your performance review. I acknowledge that we're a little bit late having this discussion, and I apologise for that. Unfortunately, my overseas travel schedule did cause a bit of a delay, but I'm glad that we're getting the opportunity to sit down and to meet and talk through the last 6 months now for you. So I'd like to start out with asking you how you feel that your performance has gone over the last 6 months. What do you feel are some of the key successes and key challenges that you've faced?
I feel that I've generally gone well. I feel that sometimes while the team I've got perform well and we get things done on time, sometimes we feel that the success that we have sometimes means that we attract work which would probably be better handled by other teams. Can tend to just create a bit of unnecessary busyness which could be otherwise handled by someone else.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel that sometimes we get a little bit penalised by our success.
Mm-hmm. And have you thought about some strategies for approaching that?
Not so much. Just perhaps things along the lines of just making sure that the other groups are properly utilised with work that is appropriate for them.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Do you think that we could do some training to help other people have some better information and access to information, and that might help them to be able to do some of that work?
Perhaps improvements in communication might help for all the groups to be aware of what everyone's doing so that the work can be shared evenly.
Mm-hmm. Okay. How are some of the ways that you think we could improve on that communication?
Perhaps methods of listing the sorts of work that we've got going, the sort of tasks that are active at the time, and having a clear line of responsibility for who's looking after them, so that everyone's aware of what each other are working on.
Do you think that starting up a monthly meeting where everyone gets together would be a good way of achieving that?
That would be helpful.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that it's great that you've shown the initiative to bring up the issue. So I'd like you to take a lead in really helping to bring this together. So we might rotate it so that it's fair, but I'll get you to organise the first one and get your team to be first cut off the rank with providing a bit of a presentation to everybody so that we can start that communication and that knowledge transfer process.
Sure.
How does that sound?
Good.
Okay. All right. Well, let's arrange to have that happen, within the next maybe 2 to 3 weeks, so we've got a bit of time to prepare, and we can come back and we can have a chat about that later on to see how it's tracking.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So I guess what are some of the other challenges or successes that come to mind for you? What about you personally? We've talked a little bit about the team there, but what about you personally in your role?
There's always been a bit of an issue with the leave arrangement. Okay. It tends to be. I think that the leave arrangements have been more so written for, say, secretarial staff who are required to be at the company within office hours, but this leave arrangement isn't necessarily appropriate for professionals who don't necessarily need to be there in regular office hours, but it still applies to them. So this can be a little bit onerous, a little bit restrictive.
Okay. So we did talk about this the last time that we had your performance review, and at the time I did take that up with HR for them to look into it. They did come back and say that at this point in time they're reviewing it, but that the current leave policy does stand and that we need to make sure that happens so that excuse me, there's equity within the teams within the business. So I'll certainly commit to going back to HR and seeing where that review is up to. in the meantime, it's really important that as leaders, we are making sure that our team is complying with the leave policy. It doesn't create, I think, the best impression if some people are following it and some people aren't. We want to make sure that there's an equal treatment. Would you say that your team has been following the leave policy?
There's a little bit of movement here and there. There's sort of a general understanding that some small liberties can be taken, and this was sort of outlined informally in my interview that sometimes there were leave opportunities that weren't sort of officially sanctioned, but were taken nonetheless with the understanding that the professionals need that little bit of leeway, I suppose.
Would you say that it's routine practice though for the team to be taking those liberties?
It's not unusual, I would say.
Okay, all right. I think that becomes a little bit of an issue. I think that where it happens every now and again is different to if it's not unusual, if you know that it's happening regularly. So I'd certainly ask that in your role you make sure that the team is complying with the leave policy. That's important that we do that. And it's important that we're all seen to be acting fairly. And if the team has suggestions that they want to have put up to HR through me, I'm more than happy for them to talk to you about it and for you to pass that information on to me. Okay. All right, so we've talked about the communication and some of the work distribution, and we've also talked about the leave. I think that we've got some good strategies to address those things. Is there anything else that you wanted to raise as a particular concern, or something that you think has gone really well that you'd like to bring to my attention?
Gone really well. I think that the success of the team is notable. I do feel that sometimes there is a little bit of rivalry with the assistant managers. There tends to be a little bit of potentially a bit of jealousy of my team's success. So and there's always been a little bit of friendly bantering going on, but sometimes this can wander into slightly more corrosive competitiveness, which can be problematic too. I think that can potentially lead to a bit of undermining.
So what have you done to address that?
I try to assist them wherever I can. So if they need help, then I'm always happy to try and help them where I can. I think sometimes though they tend to take advantage of that, and because there is effectively a form of competition between them and me, they can tend to take advantage of that to the point where I'm actually sort of undermining my own position. So I try to help them where I can, but sometimes it can work against me.
Okay. Do you think that is the best way that we could go about it? Do you think that there's a different way that we could approach that to help if you feel that it is becoming corrosive, which is a concern?
I don't. Perhaps no, I don't. Well, no, I'm not really sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, look, I think that it would be helpful for us to see whether or not the team meetings that we're going to put into place will help to address that as well. And I think that should be something that we come back and we have another discussion about soon, maybe after we've had a couple of these team meetings, and we can see whether or not a more open form of communication is helping to deal with some of those issues. What about key successes? What would be the thing that you say? What would be a key success? What do you feel is one of the things you're most proud of achieving in the last 6 months?
That's you. Promotion from promotion to product manager. I would mark that as my main success.
Okay. And look, I think that from my perspective, you're doing a good job. The team's performing well. I think that you're showing really good creativity and commitment in your job. I know that you work hard, so I think you're doing the job side of it really well. I think that there are some areas that we can continue to improve on in terms of how the broader team is working together, and that's why I'd like to see that you're very involved and engaged in the meetings that we're going to put together and helping to really lead from the forefront. I think that knowledge sharing is really important and it helps us all to succeed. We're all here for the same purpose and the one goal, so I think that it's important that we utilise those. But certainly from a work commitment perspective, I acknowledge that that's been really strong, and I think you're bringing some really good innovative ideas into the space and into the team. From I suppose a development perspective, so the things that you'd like to develop on in the next few months, is there any particular training or any particular professional development that you would like to undertake?
And nothing on top of what we've already talked about.
Okay. All right. So you do have your conference coming up, the Cosmetics Chemicals Convention in May, what you're going to Cairns for. I think that's one of those things that we can really utilise as a knowledge sharing exercise with the team. So what I'd like you to do is when you come back from that is that we'll have you do a separate standalone presentation to the entire team, so that they can learn everything that you've learned through the course of going to that particular conference. I've spoken to Pat Jones, our Vice President, about that, and they're really keen to see that happen. So I think great opportunity for you to go to Cairns and get to experience that, but we want to see that you bring back those learnings and put that presentation together. So what we'll do is we'll schedule a time for everybody in the week after you get back from the conference, and have some PowerPoints and think about how you'd like to do it, bring some creativity to it. You don't want it to be just by PowerPoint. How do you feel about that? I think that would be a really value-adding experience.
Yeah, good experience.
Yeah, okay. It's a little bit outside of your normal area of interest and a little bit outside of the role you're currently doing. So is there further opportunities that you'd like to pursue down the track with the cosmetics chemicals?
No, it's not in an area of huge interest. So
okay.
Appreciate that. It's always valuable to attend these things, but
okay. If you don't mind me asking, if it's not an area of huge interest, do you think that there might be someone else in your team, perhaps maybe one of your direct reports, that might benefit from going to the conference and allow you to stay and be more focused on other tasks?
Well, I arranged the trip to it, so it's appropriate that I go.
You said it's not an area of huge interest though, so I suppose I'm a little confused as to why you wanted to go if that's the case, given that it was something you pushed quite hard for. I was happy to support it, but it's important that these things are going to give value back to the businesses as well as give value to yourself. I know that it is quite an area of interest to a couple of other people.
Right, yeah, okay. Well, yeah, I mean, it's always valuable to go and see these things, even if they aren't necessarily in one's direct line of interest. But yeah, so that's the basis for it. So
okay, all right. Well, look, I think if that's the case, and knowing that there's some other people that find the topic area really really interesting, particularly important to make sure that we have that presentation go ahead. And we'll look forward to being able to hear all about your learnings from the convention in May. Okay. Was there anything else that you wanted to add today before we finished up, Lee? Is there any support that I can be giving to you better as your manager, or anything that you need that I can look into for you?
Probably just a general awareness of workload. We tend to find that not through any carelessness, but sometimes work can be dropped on us when we're particularly busy, and we do struggle with that. Can push us into weekends and that sort of thing. We're always, but I don't want to have to turn work away or turn tasks away. I'm always trying to be as helpful as I can, but sometimes it can be very difficult to achieve deadlines when it's very busy and tasks get dropped on us.
Can you give me a specific example of a time that I've done that to you?
It's more of a general comment.
Okay,
yeah.
all right. Well, I hope if there are any specific examples of when I've done that to you or someone else, that you bring those to my attention. If there's no specific examples that you can think of or that come to mind, then generally I think that we can manage that type of thing with good communication with each other.
It is, there isn't so much a general example. It is just a specific example. It is more of a general statement. Sometimes and it's not an accusation against you or anything. It's just a general statement that sometimes perhaps this goes back to the communication issue, just making sure that everyone's on the same page. And there's a bit of discussion about what the workload's like and so on.
Okay. Well, I think that it would be good to sort of revisit some of the commitments that we've made through it, just so that we're clear about what we've talked about. So we have our monthly meetings coming in, and we have you taking the lead on arranging the first one of those and thinking about what type of information your team can communicate in that process. I've committed to going away and speaking to our HR team again about our leave policy. In the meantime, you're going to be making sure that your team is complying with the leave policy as much as possible. We want to see that those requests are ad hoc and not standard for people to be going outside the confines of that.
Sure.
And then also when it comes to the convention in May, you're going to be coming back and giving that presentation to us. So I know that we'll all be looking forward to seeing that. With the workload issue, please make sure that you are raising any particular concerns or issues to me. And if there's a specific example that comes up, make sure that I can be made aware of that. In terms of ongoing, that I'm always here and have an open door if you ever need to talk to me about anything.
Sure.
I know that hopefully the travel will be a little bit less full on in the next few months, so we should be able to have our next meeting without any delays, hopefully. Was there anything that you wanted to sort of add before we finished up today, Lee?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for your time. Always enjoy us being able to sit down and spend some time having a chat, and hopefully it's a bit less time between this and the next one. Thanks,
Thank you.
Lee.